Hello and welcome to GreenFleet Talks. My name is Kate Armitage and I'm your host for our discussion today. And I am delighted to be joined by Anthony Marcoux, who is UK commercial consultant at DriveTech from the AA. Hi Anthony, good to see you again.
Hi Kate, nice to be here.
How are you doing?
Thank you.
Good. Right, today Anthony, you and I are going to be focusing on SMEs. And the specific challenges that they face when they are transitioning to zero emission vehicles. And I think you've got some experience with SMEs.
I have, yes. I think a lot of people will know that I've come from a fleet management background at large corporate, but also managing SME fleets as well. So hopefully that knowledge can be passed out to everybody that's listening.
Good. Let's give it a whirl, shall we? Okay, so let's start at the end, which is the delay to the end sales date for petrol and diesel vehicles, which has now been pushed out to 2035. I think for some SMEs, this would have been quite a welcome announcement. But what are the risks in delaying the switch to zero emission vehicles?
Yeah, I think it's important to sort of understand that all companies will make decisions based on their own fleet and operational needs. You know, the fleet really is going to be a blend of vehicles. So things to consider are the age of existing vehicles and the demands that these vehicles will face on a daily basis, including loads and distances. Maintenance and vehicle-related costs will come into play. So if you're looking at a delay and keeping vehicles on a longer cycle, then you'd expect the costs potentially to increase if you've got older vehicles on fleet. But at the same time, I like to sort of flip that around and look at what the opportunities are rather than the risks as well. So, it's given us more time to plan, especially when it comes to charging options to start off with. So giving you opportunities to look at on-site charging, home charging, and reviewing the public charging as well around the workplace and seeing what's going to work for the business. And then at the same time, we know that vans will be, the heart of many businesses, and that it's a challenging area when it comes to transitioning to electric vehicles for the commercial sector. And we know that the BVRLA, along with the AA and others, are looking at lobbying for change within the zero emission van plan. But that's something to keep an eye on as well, because there's a lot of people in the industry that are lobbying to change things and make things easier for the end user. So I think in summary, there's no sort of one size that fits all when it comes to, a solution for SMEs. But, with the AA, along with DriveTech, there's a lot of guidance and support out there to help SMEs make the right decisions and support with any advice along the way. I think getting staff on board, getting your employees on board is really important. Training and vehicle familiarization will help to increase confidence. And, saying that from a personal perspective as well, I've benefited from having driver training, and I've been looking at electric vehicles for over 10 years. And I'm still learning things to the day about how they operate. So I think the extra time gives you the opportunity to be able to become familiar with technology, look at new technology, look at new vehicles that are coming out, and, look at your own personal circumstances and, share the positive messages really. So a lot of opportunity rather than, sort of focusing on the risks. Appreciate the risks are there, but it's given us a little bit more time to make sufficient plans.
Yeah, I think you're right, Anthony. And I think this market is evolving very quickly. So rather than saying, okay, well, I can put that on hold for 5 years, which potentially you could with that 5-year delay, probably much wiser to continue to revisit this and continue to monitor it, because as an example, the public charging infrastructure is getting better and better and better, which may provide solutions for some fleet, van or car fleets, in fact, as well as anything else. But it's a very dynamic market. And on the flip side, there are grants out there at the moment, and they won't be there forever. So, which kind of leads on to my next question, because cost, lack of time, and lack of knowledge are frequently cited by SMEs who have not begun to electrify their fleets. So, kind of, what's your advice specifically for them?
Yeah, I think drawing on my own experience as well, I think probably one of the first things to do is speak to manufacturers or speak to your preferred manufacturers. They are mandated to ensure that new vehicles are electric vehicles. So when it comes to buying or leasing, there's a lot more choice out there to start off with, because manufacturers are putting more choice in front of us. But at the same time, there's probably a conversation to be had around support as well, and speaking to them about what support's available and getting some help from preferred manufacturers. So I think that'd be a good starting point. Also within this space, I think we talk about TCO quite a lot, total cost of ownership, and I think it's important to get a picture of the full journey when it comes to costs, not just looking and focusing on the higher upfront costs of potentially an electric vehicle and public charging. Let's look at the positives in terms of the fuel savings and potentially other savings when it comes to maintenance as well. So I think it's good to look at those areas. For those that are traveling around clean air zones, there's going to be other charges that apply, congestion charges, things like that as well. So look at that as a benefit, because I think that's quite useful, and can be quite costly as well when you've got large volumes of vans running through main cities. And then there's other options as well. Maybe not for every company, but look at storing electricity through solar and making charging and running electric vehicles more cost effective. Now that might be more of a long-term solution, and the return on investment might be a longer term solution, but I think it's a viable one. And like I said earlier, when it comes to sort of knowledge and confidence, that can be a game changer when it comes to transitioning. It can also improve safety as well. And there's intangible benefits there when it comes to that. I think something that's been beneficial to me as I've gone along and looked at electric vehicles is just looking at the industry, speaking to industry peers. There's a lot of people within the industry that are there to help. And I know certainly from a GreenFleet perspective, the EV rally, which is upon us, little more than a month away, is a key one really, because it's really pushing the infrastructure and the technology to the limits. And there's a lot to be learned from that. So either get involved with that or, look at the outputs from that as well, because there's a lot of learning points and, a lot to be talked about there as well, really. So, I think they're kind of points that I'd put forward to any SMEs or fleets that are looking at this from a cost perspective.
Great, Anthony. And at the very beginning then, you said yourself, that the automotive OEMs are mandated to sell zero-emission vehicles, and that may have implications as well as the year goes on, in terms of seeing some potentially very good deals on electric vehicles as the market, and of course we're seeing the second-hand market come into its own. So again, as an SME, you may be better off looking at a second-hand EV, because we know the batteries are holding up well. These are really good second-hand vehicles.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Okay, right. So let's say we've managed to persuade our lovely SMEs to switch to electric. What steps should they be doing? What should they take into consideration?
Yeah, I think there's several factors that influence the transition to electric vehicles. I think I touched on this earlier, but it may naturally fall into the the replacement of the fleet. I think the age and number of vehicles on fleet is quite important. Some vehicles may be due for replacement imminently, or some might be within 12 months, 24 months. So I think looking at your fleet profile and sort of planning ahead is key. I think this would be a lot easier for company cars because it feels like the product is there and available today. It might need a little bit more planning around the commercial sector for the reasons we've spoke about. But initially, and drawing from my experience again, I think telematics information's important. Do appreciate that telematics is not available to everybody. So any sort of access to mileage reports or even manual mileage checks as well, because if needed we can go back to that, and it's something that I'm familiar with myself in terms of getting mileages by text messages or emails, whatever it might be, and then drawing up reports and just understanding where the low-hanging fruit is. Where are those pockets and areas where an EV would fit in terms of the daily mileage and infrastructure that's available. So I think that kind of would be my initial response to that. I think
let me stop you there, Anthony, because I think telematics now is incredibly sophisticated, right? And a lot of the telematics providers have some really great EV analysis tools, but SMEs may not have access to that data, as you've quite rightly said, may not be able to afford it, but more importantly, they may not need it. If it's a relatively small fleet, you're absolutely right that a manual timesheet which tracks on a daily basis the mileage that the vehicle has covered is potentially sufficient, as long as you know what your average daily mileage is, and more importantly, what the maximum daily mileage has been over a period of time, because it's okay to say, well, on average it's this, but every now and again there may be one very long journey that vehicle's frequently making. But the range of the electric vehicles that are available on the market is going up and up and up. And when you combine that with the fact that the rapid charging network across the UK is so much more grown out now, I think you're absolutely right. Look at the data and really understand where those vehicles can be electrified.
Yeah, and just adding to that as well, Kate, we do appreciate that when it comes to commercial vehicles, that these are the wheels of the industry.
Yeah.
But as you said there's plenty of options out there. I think it just needs a little bit more planning, but it's very achievable for the infrastructure that's out there. There's various options available, but one that we use quite a lot is ZapMap, and I use that myself quite often, and that's regularly updated, and it's very easy to be able to locate available chargers, and it's the information is very accurate as well. So that really does help when you're sort of planning journeys and planning ahead, which is what's needed here.
Yeah, 100%. And you said it yourself, Anthony, talk to other small businesses in your area who have already made the move. What challenges have they had? And particularly, how are they charging these vehicles? What strategies have they used? Because it's the infrastructure that the danger is. The infrastructure comes second, but actually you kind of need that before you get the cars. Otherwise, you're going to get off onto the wrong foot.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. Now, let's put zero-emission vehicles to one side for a minute. What are the other ways, with your fleet manager hat on, what are the other ways that SMEs can reduce emissions from their transport operations?
Yeah, so I think that decarbonisation, it's a company-wide consideration. So, looking at typical ICE vehicles, I think more efficient driving of ICE vehicles is absolutely necessary. Little things like not idling when stationary, because we know that a lot of drivers tend to do that, especially during winter months. To keep the vehicle warm.
Yeah.
That's fully appreciated. But other things like controlling braking and accelerating, that can all help with fuel efficiency. And in effect the air quality as well. There's other things that are growing, and it's great to see things like car sharing, because that's traditionally been a very effective way to improve efficiency within the workplace, and that's an option for some, might not be for others, but certainly worth looking at, potentially regionally. And then sort of more companies now are looking towards multimodal travel plans, including active travel, so cycling and walking to work, and a combination of the both as well. And that's having secondary benefits as well. It's it's helping the environment, but it's also good for well-being factors as well, which is more and more important these days as there's more awareness around that. And then I think just sort of closing up on that, measuring and monitoring the options that you've got available, benchmarking, and then looking at ways to improve, and building on that is vital really, and that helps to sort of grow your plans and look into different areas to support the business.
Yeah, and this is really kind of essentially should be the nuts and bolts of your whole travel policy anyway, irrespective of moving to zero emission vehicles, because this is all best practice stuff, isn't it?
Certainly is. Yeah.
And just tell me a little bit more about the driver training.
Yeah, driver training. So, I mean, as part of Drive Tech, we offered various options when it comes to driver training. That's it can be digital based, online, or face to face. We're seeing more and more companies taking up face to face driver training, and in effect, that can be positioned however the company wants to look at it. Really, it can be tailored accordingly. So we can look at any particular factors, any risk areas, and look at efficiencies, fuel efficiency, more efficient driving, which all helps towards our common goal.
Yeah, great. And this is it. So whilst you may undertake the training initially because you want to reduce emissions and for drivers to be more efficient, there are other side benefits as well about having better, safer drivers on your fleet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Anthony, thank you for your insight today. It has been a pleasure talking to you. And of course, thank you to Drive Tech for joining GreenFleet Talks.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Anthony. That is about all we've got time for. Thank you for watching, and tune in to GF365 again soon.